All right. I'm going to try and make this brief because I have to run out to work soon. This is primarily going to discuss, I'm going to show you a couple of things that make me believe that Ze Frank is a part of a family that's branched off of one of the Illuminati families. One of the Illuminati family names is Freeman. We'll get into that in a minute, but one of the things that So I was just searching. I like to put these random little things into Google. Things like, Ze Frank likes little boys. Ze Frank is gay. And see what comes up. And when I put in Ze Frank likes little boys into Google, the first two videos to come up are my videos. I've made these first two videos at the top here. They are on this very channel that I'm going to post this video to. However, pay attention to the little description down at the bottom of each of these where it says Ze Frank's show includes weird segments like angry babies, invisible babies, and discussions about sex. That is not the description for this video. I did not write that description. I don't know who thought it would be appropriate to combine that description with my video, because my video is pointing out, these two videos are pointing out that Ze Frank uses a ridiculous amount of babies and children, young children and young adults, like teenagers and young adults that were half his age. So like the oldest people, most of the people he had in his show were in their early 20s or younger. And when the two shows that I'm talking about, A Show with Ze Frank and The Show with Ze Frank, like when he made the second one, A Show with Ze Frank, he was 41 years old. So he was dealing with people, like mostly people half his age or younger, right? So I was talking about how this is inappropriate, how it's creepy how he's showing so many kids on his show, right? And people half his age. But I don't know why YouTube and Google search decided to assign this random generic description to my videos that makes it sound like, oh, Ze Frank's show is no big deal. Well, I know why. I think it's because, again, I think Ze Frank is part of an Illuminati family. And I think that they kind of own and run social media and give us the appearance of it being free and uncontrolled, and it's highly controlled. Here's how you can tell it's highly controlled. Most people won't use the word rape anymore in their YouTube videos. Instead, they use the word essay or they use grape. They're making grown adults talk like little kids because they're afraid to use certain words, right? So we definitely don't have freedom of speech on YouTube, and on a lot of these social platforms. And a lot of that is thanks to these Illuminati families. So let's talk about them really quickly. And I'm going to point out some things about... CJ Frank is let's do, so Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Springmeier. So Fritz Springmeier wrote this book that you can even get on the CIA government website. See right here, CIA.gov. Maybe that's a made up website. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to have a .gov, like a gov extension, unless you are an actual government department agency. I could be wrong. So as far as I know, this is an actual like CIA website that is offering this book in PDF format called Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I already have it downloaded. I've downloaded it I don't know how many times, so many times, and backed it up onto so many different devices and hard drives, just in case. So he talks about the Illuminati bloodlines right here in this very informative book. And the names of the Illuminati bloodlines, at least for the Western Hemisphere of the world, there's a whole other list for the Eastern Hemisphere. There's like a whole other list that's for that I've read for that has a lot of Italian names on it that covers like a lot of the Eastern Hemisphere. So let me see if no, I didn't want that. Ah, here we go. So some of the names are listed right here. The Mellons, Carnegies, Rothschilds. Pay attention to Rothschild. That's going to be important later. Rockefellers, Dukes, the Astors. I've mentioned them. Dorrances, Reynoldses, like Ryan Reynolds, like a lot of these names, and even though it's spelled slightly different, that's one of the things is they have branch off. These are the main names, the main family names, but then they have branch off families with names that are almost exactly the same, just spelled slightly differently. All right. The Stillemans, Bakers, Pines, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce that. Quillmans. A lot of these I haven't looked into yet. The Watsons, the Tukes, Kleinworts, the DuPonts. You guys should know that name, DuPonts, because you have chemicals you likely have chemicals in your body, in your bloodstream, that were put there because the DuPonts are assholes. They released a bunch of forever chemicals, they're called, because they're really hard to get out of your body. They put them in the atmosphere and they leached into drinking water, and like most of the world has them in their bodies. And the DuPonts weren't really not held accountable enough, in my opinion, for poisoning basically the entire world. The Warburgs, Phippses, Graces, Guggenheims, Milners, Drexel College. Like, these people are well-funded. They got a lot of money, and they found things like whole colleges and, museums. The Whitneys, the Vanderbilts, Winthrops. So the Bundys and the Collinses are also some names. The Kennedys, the Onassis and Kennedy, they're also some names. One of the names is one of the top 13. So there are a pretty good amount of Illuminati bloodlines, but there's a pyramid, a pyramid of power sort of amongst them. Where some of the bloodlines, some of the families and family names are more powerful than others. And there is sort of a top 13 Illuminati bloodlines. And here we go. The Freemans. So here are the top 13. The Astors, the Bundys. So the Astors, the Bundys, the DuPonts, the Freemans, the Kennedys, the Lees, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the Russells are some of them. Now, Freeman. That's why I searched Freeman. Here's why I searched Freeman. Let's see. Let's go to... I don't want to leave this. I want to come back to it. But I also want to show you guys something. Let's do it this way. See if I can do... Oh, okay. Ow. I just banged my elbow. All right. Freeman, name meaning. Okay, so Freeman... Oh, well, it's the other way around. Let's do Frank. So Zay Frank. Zay Frank. Frank, surname... Meaning. What does the name Frank mean? This is not giving me name meanings. It used to be, it came right up at the very top here. It can have multiple meanings, but the number one meaning is, you can see it right here, sort of. Free. And it also means man, like free man. It means a free man, basically. Frank. If I just do name meaning. Frank, name meaning. Free or Frenchman or freeman. So Freeman, Frank. So remember how I said that you have these main names, these main Illuminati bloodline names. Right? Astors, Bundys, DuPonts, Freemans, Kennedys. But then there are other little Forbes. Forbes is one of them also. So you have these main Illuminati bloodlines, these main names. But then you also have these little branch off names. Families. where they change the name slightly or they take a name that means the same thing. So Frank means Freeman. All right. Also, have a look-see here. Let's see if I can pull it up quickly. One of the videos Zay Frank released about 12 years ago. And this is what they do, how they do, all right? They drop little hints in certain ways here and there about who they are, what they're really all about. They won't outright say, hi, I'm part of an Illuminati bloodline. My success was totally set up from the get-go, okay? I'm a sleeper, you know, basically I'm an industry plant. Like, I didn't really have to work as hard for my success as a lot of other people would have to. And a lot of people have worked harder than he has and still aren't even a fraction as successful as he is. All right? Because a lot of it is just he comes from a family that has connections. So, oh, look, right here. True facts about Morgan Freeman.
Did his own birth, saying, Morgan Freeman was born in 1937. He narrated his own birth, saying...
Yeah, so that's Zay Frank narrating a video about Morgan Freeman. It looks to me, I think it was one of his first True Facts. Yeah, his very first True Facts episode, I think. No, he had one about anglerfish and sloths. Huh. Oh, one about puggles. So it was one of his very first, though. There we go. So, yeah, Morgan Freeman, who, by the way, guys, I suspect of being a part of the... He was probably a member of the Illuminati Freeman bloodline. And at the very least, if not, I wouldn't put it past them to be a patrons or fund people who have the same last name as them, who they think like, you know, you've got it, kid. You've got what it takes to be a star. You're going to bring like fame to our name. So for example, the Rothschilds, they actually funded Alexander Hamilton. Like Alexander Hamilton was born super poor, but he was really, really smart. And so the Rothschilds actually funded his education and they kind of made him their man at that point. Like he owed the Rothschilds a lot. And so he was going to do things according to what the Rothschilds wanted him to do. You know, they paid for him to be educated. They paid for him to like come up out of the slums, basically. So they had him in their pocket, basically. So yeah, Alexander Hamilton was a Rothschild pawn, essentially. So it's not unheard of for these Illuminati bloodlines families to fund certain people who they think, you know, are particularly intelligent or talented, or just, you know, they just got that zing. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, that's something you can't quite put a finger on. I forget there's like that, there's a French term for it. It's escaping me, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, that celebrity superstar energy, where it's like everything you touch turns to gold. They will fund somebody like that to get them in their pocket, to set them up as like a pawn on the chessboard of life. So it's like, we give you a bunch of money now. We help you come up out of the gutter. We pay for your education. We put you in a nice job position or something like that. And then later on, when we need you for favors, you will do us favors. All right? That's how it goes for a lot of these people. So again, Morgan Freeman, this video was made by Zay Frank. See all these pictures of his big dumb face. Zay Frank. Frank means the same thing as Freeman, all right? The name Frank means Freeman, essentially. Or Frenchman. Which is funny because he's German. And the French hate the Germans. They really do. They really do. I mean, I know that there was some cooperation between like northern France But that was like the political people of northern France cooperated with Germany during World War II. But the overall general consensus amongst the typical French people is like, ew, about Germans. Like, they don't like the language. They think they're uncouth. They still haven't put World War II completely behind them in terms like just like, yo, you invaded us. You invaded our country. Not cool. All right. Like, they just don't like the Germans. So I just think it's funny. Which brings me to another point that I wanted to make. So Ze Frank, yes, he is of German descent through his father. Let's bring a picture of Joachim Frank. This is Ze Frank's father. He's a Nobel Prize winner. And he is from a place called Saigon. I still don't remember. I looked up how to pronounce it once, and now I don't remember because, I'm sorry, it's just not that important to me how you pronounce it. He's from a place in Germany called Saigon. Right here. See? Now, where is Saigon, Germany? Copy. Paste. We'll put it, well, I'm trying to bring up a map. Come on, give me the map. Now I'm showing you the map because I want to show you where it is in relation to Frankfurt, Germany. There it is. So if we zoom out a lot, so we can see, kind of get a better idea of the distance. The distance is really, I looked it up once. It's essentially the distance, roughly the same distance as it is between Philadelphia and New York City. So from Saigon here, Saigon to Frankfurt. And Ze Frank he's made videos about places like this one museum in Frankfurt. So he seems to go back and forth to Frankfurt fairly regularly. So the distance between these two places, Saigon and Frankfurt, is about roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's the same distance roughly between Philadelphia and New York City. And I've said before, people make that commute every day back and forth to work, or like several times a week at least. It's not a very long distance. Now, why am I pointing that out? The distance between Saigon, Joachim Frank's hometown, and Frankfurt, and the fact that Ze Frank seems to pay a lot of mind to Frankfurt. He seems to spend a lot of time in Frankfurt or go back and forth there, probably fairly regularly. Well, because Jacob Frank, and we'll come back to this. So we're going to come back to this book. Again, this book is called Illuminati Bloodlines. Bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. You can download the PDF for free right online, guys, if you want to read it. I totally suggest you read it. If you want to know who your masters are, I mean, I don't like calling them that. I don't like thinking of them in that way, but maybe I need to put it in that context to wake you up, snap you out of it. Like, you're slaves to these people. To these people, in their minds, you are their slaves. You are their passive income. They live the high life off your backs, right? That's these people, these bloodlines, these families. So it would behoove you to know a lot about them, as much about them as you possibly can. I understand life be lifing and you're tired and you got to work, and I got to work too. And I got mouths to feed, me and a bunch of cats and a sugar glider. And I got bills to pay too, right? I get it. There are a lot of days that I wish I could research this stuff, and I just don't have the energy. I don't get the chance, but I try to make the time as much as possible and sum up the energy. So, because this is important, guys, you and your children will be slaves to these people, and they're making the quality of life worse and worse and worse. It's going to be it's shittier for us than it was for our parents and our grandparents. And it's going to be shittier for your kids and even shittier for their kids, so on and so forth. So if you don't do something about this, it's just gonna continue to get worse. Pay attention. You gotta pay attention. You have to know what's going on, and it starts with like, you know, reading about this stuff. So let's look up. I'm going to search within this document, within the book here. We're going to look up Frank. Because there is a Frank family that's mentioned. Well, he's talking about Benjamin Franklin here, but later on, he gets into the Jacob Frank family. Jacob Frank, for those of you who don't know, was a cult leader. He was a cult leader in the Jewish community, although real Jewish people, typical Jewish people, have disavowed Jacob Frank's cult. They're called the Frankists, okay? They're called the Frankists. It was called the Frankist movement. They are still around. They just kind of went underground. They changed their names. They pretended to convert to other religions like Catholicism, but they are still practicing Kabbalistic. It's not Judaism anymore. It's not. It had its roots in Judaism, but again, it's so far gone from typical Judaism now that typical Jews are just like, yeah, no, they're not Jewish anymore. So these people aren't Jewish anymore. What they practice is essentially devil worship. It's just like, for lack of better terminology, you can use depending on whatever religion you have. Every religion has a word or a name for the devil, for like this evil entity. That's what they practice. That's what they worship, is evil. Okay, the personified manifestation of evil in some ways. So that's what they worship. They are not Jewish anymore. So do not see this as anything against Jewish people. These people, they're not Jewish anymore. All right. Franklin, I'm going down. Almost there. Now it's mentioning Frank Sinatra. Yeah, Frank Sinatra was tied in with these people. That's a whole other, I'm not going to get into Frank Sinatra. Frankist Satanists. He's talking about the Pasha family here. Turkish Revolution, 1908. Was a leader of the Young Turks, which was a joint project of the Sufis and the Frankist Satanists. So it even says right here, they are Satanists. The Frankist movement, the Frankists, started by Jacob Frank. They are Satanists. They're devil worshippers. They are not Jewish anymore. Okay, they left that behind a long time ago. And in fact, I won't do it quite yet. Maybe I'll do it in this video, but you can go on YouTube and you can pull up videos of typical Jewish people like rabbis and such getting up in public, giving public talks to auditoriums full of people where they are disavowing the Frankists and saying like, the Frankists, let's be clear about this. The Frankists are not Jewish. They are not Jewish anymore. We disown them. We disavow them. They are not Jewish. What they do, what they practice, what they believe in is so far aflung, so far away from typical Jewish people that it's just not Judaism anymore. They cannot claim to be Jewish. Their roots were in Judaism, but they are not Jewish. So the type of Satanism right here, the type of Satanism led by the Frank family has had connections to Turkey for hundreds of years. So the Frank family he's talking about Jacob Frank. Let's pull him up. And we'll leave this up about Frankfurt because Jacob Frank, he operated the Frankist movement primarily out of Frankfurt, New Jersey. No, Frankfurt, Germany. All right. So yeah, Jacob Frank was he wasn't from Frankfurt, Germany. I think he was Polish, but he traveled around a bit and then wound up settling in Frankfurt, Germany. And this was like the base of operations, probably still is, for the Frankist movement, the Satanists, the Frankist Satanists, all right? And again, let me remind you, oh look, Saigon. Where Joachim Frank is from, Zay Frank's father. He's from there. It is a hop, skip, and a jump away from Frankfurt. It is a leisurely drive. I drive that far. I drive like an hour and a half for my job sometimes. I work part-time as an art teacher for this one company that sends me out to teach events, like do art party events. And they send me up to like an hour and a half away to surrounding cities. So it's really not, and it's not a big deal of a drive. It's so again, and these people also, if you read the history of the Frankist movement, so let's just pull up Jacob Frank. Here's this asshole. Jacob Frank. What happened with a lot of the Franks, and he just piggybacked off of this guy, Sabbatai Zvi. I've heard his name pronounced so many different ways. Sabbatai Zvi is how I'll pronounce it, whatever. That guy started this movement. He was considered to be a messiah. And then he totally sold out and converted to Islam, only because he was taken prisoner by some I don't know, Shah or whatever, Tsar or whatever, I forget. And he was told, okay, you can either convert to Islam or you're going to be beheaded. And so, of course, because he was not really a messiah, he was a sellout, he was a charlatan, he was a cult leader, he converted to Islam. And that lost him most of his followers. But there were some followers who were still really hardcore and brainwashed. And what they did, they took that as a sign to just convert to other religions openly, publicly, but then secretly they still practiced their Kabbalistic Satanist traditions and stuff behind closed doors. So a lot of these people who were identifying publicly as Jewish, but were still secretly really Satanists, they then openly, publicly converted to things like Catholicism and Islam, but they were still secretly behind closed doors. They were still Satanists. All right. And what they did is they moved different places. They spread out and changed their names. So, for example, some of them were named Mayor, like as in Mayor Amschel Rothschild, but some of them had the last name Mayer too. And they would move to Ireland. Some of the mayors who were Frankists, they moved to Ireland, converted to Catholicism, and changed their names to Maher. You know, like as in Bill Maher, who's Irish but looks very Jewish. He's American, but I think it's well known. It's said that he's of Irish descent, but he looks very Jewish. He's got a very Irish name, but come on, dude. He looks super Jewish. So and a lot of that, and then let's just continue the story. Okay, here's what the history book should say. These people moved to different places, these Frankists who pretended to be Jewish, but were really Satanists. They moved to different places and then pretended to convert to other religions like Catholicism and Islam. But then, and they changed their names from things like Mayor to Mar. And then they moved to America and took over Hollywood. Got me? Because here's another one that happened. So another Frankist family, some other Frankist families, they moved down to Italy and they changed their names to Tarantino. Oh, like right there, the top option, Quentin Tarantino. And if you look into the history of his family lineage, his genealogy, it matches up with the genealogy of the Frankist families that moved to Italy. They converted to, quote unquote, converted to Catholicism, even though they're really Satanists. And they changed their name to Tarantino. And then, side note, then their descendants moved to America and took over Hollywood. Look at that evil fuck. Ew. Gross. He's got that rice paper skin now, too. It's yucky. Like he's had work. It looks like, did you ever notice that? How like you can tell people have had work done because they have that skin that looks just, I don't know. It looks, something about it looks fake. Gross. Either that or he really like, he has a really good skincare regimen. Which is just like, when anytime I think about a dude having like a really involved skincare regimen, it's just like, you're not a man. I'm sorry. I come from burly, you know, I come from farmermen, firefighters, like fishermen, you know, like rugged, outdoorsy men, broad-shouldered men, and they don't fucking fuck around with their face, all right? They're not vain like that. They're just, so when I see, I don't know, it's just like when dudes are like so concerned with their skin, it's either because their wife is like, we gotta stop you from getting skin cancer. Here, make sure you put on your sunblock, or it's because they're gay. All right. So, whatever. And for those of you who are like, but he's married to this hottie toddy, like, well, have you ever heard of a beard? You know, like of course they marry supermodels to look like they're straight. Right. And it doesn't matter how gay you are, like, you know, a supermodel's a supermodel. She's pretty enough to, you know, have on your arm and keep around in your house. Doesn't mean he has sex with her. Anyway, all right, let's stop talking about fucking Tarantino. Where was I? Oh yeah, Frankists. So yeah, this book gets into the Frankist movement quite a bit because they are connected to the 13 Illuminati families like the Rothschilds. Now, I found that information myself. If you look up the genealogy, I don't have it readily available to pull up, and it would take too much searching online to show you. But you can go pull up the genealogical records yourself. Go look for, let's do this. Jacob Frank actually had 5 daughters. He had like 5 or 6 daughters. 5 daughters. Let's see if this will bring anything up. On record, what typically comes up is that he only had 1 daughter named Eve or Eva. No, he had like 5 daughters. Let's see if I can, what's it called? Like the Zionist journal. I don't remember what it was called. It was a blog. I have the information saved somewhere, and I would have to think for a little while to remember where I copy pasted, downloaded, took all like screenshots. I did it a few different ways. I backed up this entire online blog where they get into the whole history, like the backstory of the Frankist families. And it's like amazing the amount of information you can glean from this website, from this blog. But Jacob Frank had 1 daughter. He had 5 daughters. He didn't just have 1 daughter. He has this 1 daughter, Ava, who everybody knows, Eve or Ava. She took over the movement after he died, and that's the only one that they typically talk about. So like even in his Wikipedia, they probably only talk about his 1 daughter, Eve. Last time I checked, they only talk about his 1 daughter, early life. But the fact is that Eve is from his second wife. He had a first wife, though. He had like 4 or 5 daughters by his first wife. And then he remarried to like a cousin of his first wife. And it's like, yeah, his second wife was related to his first wife. He remarried, and that's who he had Eve with. And the first 4 or 5 daughters he married off to families like the Rothschilds. So Mayer Amschel Rothschild. Yeah. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, he had a sister named Hannah. Let's just do sister Hannah. Yeah, Hannah Rothschild. Hannah was the only child of Baron Mayer Amschel de Rothschild. So maybe it was his his daughter then, I guess. So they all have like, so like, it's hard to keep track of to some degree because you'll have like the father is named, like the son is named after the father, and the cousins, like they all have very similar or exact same names. But Hannah had a son. So it's basically like Mary Amschel Rothschild's nephew or something. Married one of Jacob Frank's daughters. Let's just leave it at that, all right? Rather than getting it all confused and looking for all the nonsense. Maybe I'll do a second part to this video where I have that information prepared. Because again, I have it backed up in a bunch of different places. I just can't readily put my hands on it right now. But I'll find it later and show you guys where it says like the Rothschilds married into the Frankist movement. All right. So the Rothschild family, one of the top Illuminati families, they're the banking family, the Rothschild bankers, as in the ones who own the Fed. They print the money that the United States uses. Go into your wallet, take out some of those dollar bills or the $5 bills or the $10 bills. Those are printed by Rothschilds. All right? They own that money to some extent. They control it too. So they're the ones that you can thank for things like, inflation and nonsense. Like they affect our economy in no small way by printing out this money. And they're the ones that took us off the gold standard. Or, they influenced that happening. They were a big influence on taking the United States off of the gold standard because they wanted to control the money and they wanted to use little paper nonsense. All right. So the Rothschilds, the banking dynasty, these people, they married into the Frankist movement. One of the Rothschilds married one of Jacob Frank's daughters. Again, he had like 5 or 6 daughters, something like that. There's only one that's typically talked about, but he had way more than one. He had several daughters, and he had several sons, too. One of his daughters also married into the Forbes family. Remember how... Let's go back here. And let's go back to the Illuminati Bloodlines book. Let's go Forbes. Forbes are mentioned here. Forbes is one of the bloodlines. Right here. Morgan is a family too. So literally Morgan Freeman. Freeman is one of the families, and then Morgan is one of the families, and then you got this dude named Morgan Freeman, and Zay Frank making reference to Morgan Freeman, the actor, right? Oppenheimer's. Gee, where do we know that name? Oh, the guy who blew up Japan. So Jacob Frank had many daughters and many sons. Again, he was a cult leader. He's a cult leader who operated out of Frankfurt, Germany. He had a lot of followers, and he had many sons and many daughters, and he married his sons and daughters into well-to-do families like the Forbes family and the Rothschild family. The Rothschilds, I believe, should be mentioned somewhere on this. Yeah, right there. Rothschilds. So these people, these families, they intermarry with each other. You understand? They take over certain political parties, political positions. Kennedy's, excuse me, that was a little burp. Kennedy's. Onassis is one of them. Like, literally, they intermarried. JFK, Kennedy, and married who? Oh, Miss Onassis. Yeah. They intermarry with each other in order to keep the power condensed, solidified within their families. They don't want it spreading out. They don't want the money spreading out. So yeah. So again, just to remind you, let's get back to where we started. Zay Frank is gay. No, just do. Zay Frank is gay. He's really gay, in my opinion. He's very freaking gay. He is also sort of a member of Hollywood. He's a celebrity. He's an influencer. And he, in my opinion, is a family who is connected with the Freeman family. Frank means Freeman. The Freeman Illuminati family, and he's also likely connected with the Frankist movement, with Jacob Frank's family. Who, remember, his base of operations was out of Frankfurt, Germany. And Zay Frank's father, Joachim Frank, is from a town that's a hop, skip, and a jump away from Frankfurt, Germany. All right? And these people are basically set up for fame. It's handed to them. Like, they put in some work, I'm sure. But speaking as somebody who comes from working class, I've seen people put in way more work. Speaking as somebody who comes from a family of nurses and nurse practitioners who have to do 12-hour shifts, or more sometimes, 12-hour shifts. This asshole has never worked 12 hours straight on anything in his life, I'll bet you. Shit has been handed to him more than he would care to admit. You understand? Like, so I come from a background of people that work hard. Doesn't matter how hard they work. Like, they save human lives even. They save lives, they nurture people, and it's like they deserve his money and success, more than he does. A lot of why he is where he is just because he was born into a certain family, a certain bloodline. It was handed to him, which is like kind of the opposite of what America is supposed to be about, right, guys? I mean, isn't that why we shirked the royal family? Isn't that why we were like, yeah, no, fuck off. We don't want to be a part of England anymore because we're done with royal families. We're done with families who are just handed shit. People are just handed shit because they were born into a certain bloodline and have a certain name. Fuck that. Isn't that what America's supposed to be about, right? Like, not being handed shit just because you're from a certain family and have a certain name and a certain bloodline. And yet here they are, Zay Frank, Bill Maher, Quentin Tarantino. Here they are, taking over America. Oh, the Kennedys. And for those of you who are like, but JFK was assassinated, that's because JFK was going to reveal the Illuminati. Like, look into the stuff he was talking about leading up to him being killed. He was going to start talking about, I think maybe he had like a come to God moment, or come to, I don't know, your conscience moment, and was like, yeah, it's not right what our families are doing, and I'm going to talk about it. And so he got shot. That's one explanation, at least. So, yeah, here they are. Their families are, these dudes got handed a lot of shit just because of the bloodlines they're from, the family names that they're from. They're wussy babies. That's what they are. I'd take all of you. I could so kick every single one of their asses. That's the other thing. It's like, anybody who's from real working class background just looks at the pictures of these dudes and goes like, oh, I could fuck him up. Anyway, all right. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to leave it there. I gotta go out and do a shift. So, and it would be one thing, here's the thing, is I'm not necessarily like, work hard. And let's leave it with this. Like, work smart. I'm a big fan of that too. I'm a big fan of work smart and make just as much money as you would working hard. I do think you have to work hard to some extent so you like know you just like prove yourself. But I've put in the hard work. I've worked, shoveling horse shit in barns, and I've done plenty of hard work. But a lot of these dudes, I get the feeling like they don't know what hard work is, really. They don't know what it is, and they might work smart to some degree. But again, I really do think a lot of it is just, oh, you were handed a lot of this. Like, there are people out there who work just as hard and just as smart as you do, but they don't happen to come from the same bloodlines. They don't come from the same family, and that was the deciding factor, and that's not fair. The deciding factor was, oh, you're from a Satanist, a Satan-worshipping, child-raping. These people commit incest with their own kids, too, by the way. That's one of the biggest, that's my big problem with these people. My biggest problem with them. Like, it's shitty enough that they, all the other stuff that they do to the population in general. But they rape children as well. That's disgusting. That's the line that just makes me want to vomit in their faces. It's built into their belief system. If you are worshiping the devil, the worst thing you can do, the most immoral thing you can do to please the devil would be to rape a child, and particularly rape your own children. It's something that they do. And the Frankist movement, again, look into the Frankist movement, read into some of the history behind there. They were accused of that. They were accused of all kinds of awful, disgusting sexual deviances. Frankist cult. See, it's even called the Frankist movement. It was a cult. It's still a cult. They're still around. They just went underground. All right? They just changed their names and dispersed a little bit throughout the world. But they keep track of their bloodlines. They keep track of the history of their families. They intermarry with each other still. And they still practice secretly behind closed doors. They still practice their devil worshiping stuff. And they still practice incest with each other and sex with children. It's disgusting and awful. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it there. All right. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.